This time on the Real Generation Gap.
With regular criminals, they fight like, criminals. But with dope heads, people who are on drugs,
right.
They're crazy. They're unpredictable.
I didn't even get it that was a joke. I was like, that guy's not good looking. Everything clicked back into shape. Like, even though he was all smashed up, it was like his joints, like...
I want people to see it before it gets remade with Kevin Hart.
The Brad Pitt of South Korea.
Yeah, kind of like that. I would say that, yeah.
Any criticism that I might have would be unjustified and my lack of palate.
Hi, welcome to the Real Generation Gap. I'm B.J Kang.
I'm Fred Satilli.
And the movie we're reviewing today is Extreme Job, the movie where justice is best served deep fried. In this movie, a squad of narcotics detectives go undercover to bust a international drug running operation, only to accidentally open a successful fried chicken restaurant. Now, Fred, the reason I suggest this movie is that, I felt like lately we'd been doing a lot of serious dramas, sort of historical movies, and I love those, but I wanted to lighten things up. And not only that, but sort of spice it up with a foreign movie. And
that was a great idea.
This movie, fun fact, is the highest grossing movie in South Korean film history and is the second most viewed movie in all of the history of there as well.
So they like silly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did really enjoy it too.
Another fun fact is that they're actually going to remake this movie for American audiences, except... with Kevin Hart starring in it. I don't think that Kevin Hart's acting style or the way they're going to write it is going to capture the way this movie is done, because this movie does so well because of a lot of the Korean cultural influences, specifically the way they do film and television over there. For example, Korean shows and movies are known for being like the acting is very dramatic, it's very lively, and the film as a comedy feels really refreshing, I guess, from a bit of a American perspective, because it's very lively, it's very energetic, and it feels like the characters, and you're talking about how the characters felt kind of cartoonish because of they stood out to you from what you're normally used to.
It's a funny thing. It's about innocence. Mm-hmm. American TV shows and movies, the actors used to act the parts, and you could see that they were acting. Now they're very normal and natural.
Yeah.
Where it used to be that they delivered lines with real, acting talent and ability, and they went to a certain school, and, they everything like that. Now everything's much more natural. In this movie, everybody seemed to act like in another decade to me. It was a very clean movie. And I even liked it that, like, the audio level. Sometimes you see Hollywood movies now where couple of people are talking, and then there's a couple of people talking like this, I can't even freaking hear what they're saying, And I liked it that everything here was really presented. Mm-hmm. This is the scene, these are the words, those are the people, and they give it to you. Mm-hmm. So in that regard, I really liked it.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that really stood out to me the first time I saw this was everyone felt very expressive. Everyone really stood out. It's really hard to ignore any of the characters when they're very much sort of like in your face, sort of with how they're reacting. It felt sort of like the way that they were acting and the way the characters were written and the way that the actors performed them, that it felt much more like the characters were interacting with the world around them, instead of like in where it feels like in American comedy films where the comedy is really just based off of how an actor reacts to a certain scenario or something like that. And I thought that was really interesting in that sense.
Right. It seemed like because there was 5 principal actors, the crew, the movie was about this crew of 5 people, and each one of them had their distinct personality, and when something would happen, each one would react with their character. Mm-hmm. And even twice during the movie, they actually showed a cliche, 5 actors in these block things, and it was like, here they are, and this is what they do. Kind of like a superhero movie. Yeah. This was very much like a and there they are. Look at that shot. So great. Now, for me, I can't identify with these people because they're not my race. Mm-hmm. This was a real, racism revelation for me, because I didn't identify with them. Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure, how old they were, or if one of them was better looking than the other or whatever. I really had a context issue, and I was surprised.
I thought the plot concept was cool. You're right. It was predictable. It's not like, the most innovative plot for a comedy movie, but it's a simple concept. A bunch of cops trying to keep their careers, do one last undercover job, and it sort of fails into success where they set up a fried chicken restaurant to spy on a drug operation across the street, and then end up accidentally being an overnight hit with that restaurant. And like the way that that's not the most innovative plot, but the way that it's executed is very clean. The editing is clean. The acting is phenomenal, I felt like. And it felt very, very natural. Like you said, the flow was really good.
Yeah, well, even though the plot was predictable,
yeah,
once I saw that Detective Ma was going to use the family recipe, I went, oh no. They picked this place because it had no business. And they could literally go in there and watch the people across the street because no one was eating in this place. Mm-hmm. And as soon they said, does anybody know how to cook anything? He said, well, I make a family recipe or something. And then the first person that ate it went viral. It was like, you got to go there. And then there was crowds of people. Groups came. Tourists from Japan came. And I knew that they were going to all get so involved that they would enjoy working in the restaurant. Like it became more important to them than the surveillance. It was like, I can't keep an eye on these guys across the street. I got a party of 8,
yeah.
But the twist that made it interesting was the gangsters across the street, they picked that place because there was no action on the street. And now that they had all this action, it was too much for them. They moved away. They're like, we needed a quiet place. So they even ruined the stakeout. And scenes like this, look at this scene. This is how wacky they went. Right, trying to promote, Now they're in high gear promoting the restaurant. They didn't even care about the surveillance. Now, one of the nuances of the story that I really liked that was a little different was they lost their commission. Mm-hmm. They were thrown off the case. But they said, the hell with it, we're going to bust these guys anyway. We're going to get them anyway. Yeah. So even though they were fired, they just stayed with it.
Yeah.
Right to the living end. And that was a unique twist that I didn't predict, and I thought was kind of cool. And
there was a lot of comedy that sort of leaned into sort of the Korean cultural aspects. Like, for example, when they first started going big with the restaurant, the squad chief Go has this internal monologue because we're supposed to be here to do our jobs as cops, and now we're accidental fried chicken
phenomenon.
Yeah, phenomenon. Yeah. And he has this internal monologue where he goes, but we've been failures for so long, and it's like, maybe we should just enjoy the success for just a little bit. But the whole way he's doing that monologue is in the style of an Asian style commercial. Have you ever seen commercials?
No, this is what I mean about the racist, things were over my head. And then my favorite thing about that was the guy who was not in the restaurant, who was out surveilling them from a car.
Yeah.
When they went, he goes, they're on the move. We got to get them. Nobody answered the phone. They were too busy cooking and serving and all that kind of stuff. And he went after them on his own because the restaurant became more important to them than anything else. Yeah. One of the things that made it hard for me to identify with this, in a great big way, this was a superhero movie. Mm-hmm. These 5 people were the Fantastic Five, and you didn't really quite realize that. That grew on you throughout the movie. In the beginning, they're individuals. I couldn't identify with any of them. I didn't have any investment. There was no immediate oh, I love that beautiful girl, or look at this big strong guy or something. They were just these stick figures to me. And then little by little, they got warmer and warmer and warmer. And then after a while, you realized that each one of them was a national champion in some kind of sport, some kind of martial art, And so when they fought, whenever they fought with the gang, they were even though they were silly, wimpy guys, the rest of the time, when they fought, they were phenomenal,
That was another really cool aspect of this movie that made it enjoyable, even apart from the comedy. was that there were some impressive action sequences, which is once again another hallmark of Asian cinema,
right,
specifically
whole different,
South Korean cinema, where the martial arts is really being shown, and the fight choreography was really clean and flashy while still being fairly believable, I would say. I mean, the first fight scene is the one where it's between the gangs across the street, where they're sort of just bickering and fighting amongst themselves. But the comedy on top of that is the cops they've tapped the room across the street, and they're listening, and they start rooting for one of the sides of the gangs, and they go, what are we rooting for? These are criminals.
Right. We're going to arrest these guys and, put them in jail and get them. And, it's like, but let's let them, look at this guy, look at that guy. And,
but in that scene, there was some really, really great fight choreography there. And it's further reinforced at the very end, at the very ending fight scene where they're at the shipping yard. And that's a really cool reveal.
And that's where they tell him.
Yeah.
So the one guy is throwing people all over the place. He goes,
judo.
I'm the state judo champ, whatever. And then the girl is just doing everything. And she's like, she was the Muay Thai champion for 5 years. And so you got to see him. And then, of course, the ultimate fighter was the guy who wouldn't die.
Yeah, the zombie. That's what they called him. They called him the zombie.
The chief was the zombie because he took like 11 stab wounds and he didn't die. And even his wife said, "You think this is funny? You like being the zombie. You were stabbed. I was worried about you, And he's like, yeah, I can't. And then he had, I think, one of my favorite and greatest moments in the movie. He was fighting with the ultimate gangster on the boat. And they both were getting beat up terribly. And they did the scene at the end of Rocky where they punched each other in the face at the same time, right? That was it. But when he got up from that, he did like some kind of weird like Terminator thing where like everything clicked back into shape. Like even though he was all smashed up, it was like his joints like he was regaining his strength and his integrity and everything to keep on going. And that cliche scene was so great.
That scene was literally a reference to like zombie movies because the music playing over it was like a horror movie, and the way that he was like contorting was like a zombie rising out of the grave,
right?
And it
reconstituting,
really, exactly.
He was reconstituting,
reanimated, yeah.
So one of the things I wanted to say about this, because this was a real departure for me. I've seen plenty of foreign films, but this was really a really good one, and it made me watch it a second time.
Okay.
And the reason that it made me watch a second time was the first time I watched it, I read the subtitles. And I was really glued to it because they were very quick. You had to read it or you lost it. Yeah. You wouldn't know what just happened, right? So the first time through, I was very, very focused on the subtitles. I didn't really see the movie. As you said, when he's almost returning from the dead and they had the zombie music, I didn't get that the first time because I was reading the subtitles. I really wasn't watching the movie. I didn't want to miss the story. And so I watched it again, only now I didn't read the subtitles because I sort of felt like I knew what everybody was saying. I knew the story well enough to get it. And now I could see all the facial expressions and all the reactions. And man, it was so great then. That's when I really liked it. The first time through, it was like, meh,
Yeah.
But then when I actually watched the movie, and I saw those incredible fight scenes, and the scene where the captain's wife is, trying to encourage him he says, maybe I should just quit and become a chicken guy or something. No, you're a good man. I married you because, you're a hero and everything. And then I could, and once again, that scene was very campy. Mm-hmm. It was very cartoon character. I didn't like shed a tear for her or something, but she did it so perfectly. Like every cliche move. The movie's a masterpiece.
Yeah. One of the things that like going back to like saying about like when it revealed like they were all like secretly very experienced martial arts fighters in their own aspect is that it's still tied in. There was no reason for it to just be thrown out there for the sake of entertainment.
Right. No, it was integral.
Because the other captain, Detective Chief Choi, I believe. Mm-hmm. The other captain said, well, there's a reason why they're all martial art experts, because they're the narcotics teams. With regular criminals, they fight like, criminals. But with dope heads, people who are on drugs,
right.
They're crazy. They're unpredictable. So you need people who are going to be experienced handling that. And so it made sense for and that helped it to that makes a lot of sense. That made a lot of sense.
Actually, it did. And the funny part of that, they were selected by a superior chief captain, like the really top guy.
Yeah.
Put those 5 dogs together. Like, who's going to put these guys together? But he did. Now, all through the movie, he was very angry at them and very hating on them, and very embarrassed by them, and you're not productive, you don't know what you're doing, But then at the end, when they busted the giant narcotic ring in like this incredibly dramatic way, and they all got a commendation, he's like, "That's my guys, that's my team. I'm the one. I put them together." This was, like he took the credit. He was glorified, at least even just in his own mind. But he was so excited to be that. And then the guy who was the rival captain to the captain in the story, he was like, hey, my God, like, because the other captain had sort of played it straight.
Yeah.
He was the politician. He did everything the right way. He rose through the ranks.
Yeah.
He surpassed the guy that had been there longer.
Yeah.
And he kind of had an attitude about it, like, "Look, son, I'm going to help you out. I'll throw you some bones from time to time."
It's funny because there's a scene where they kind of add on to that, where that captain does end up cornering one of the guys connected to the whole ring. Right. And so you think this fight scene's going to break out and they're going to show what they're really made of. And then they get their butts absolutely handed to them. And that part it's unexpected, but it's really funny there.
Right.
And so that was another part really added on. But this whole movie is just very coherent. It's very clean. The editing really helps. And it just, everything feels like it makes sense. Like you never feel like it's just sort of random or that it's just sort of like out there. It feels like it all connects really well to make it for a really enjoyable viewing experience.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, it was just a whole fun couple of hours, And I like, there's a scene in a James Bond movie. I think it's You Only Live Twice.
Okay.
James Bond and his chauffeur they're attacked by like a ninja squad, and they have these little schoolgirls that are in the back of the car. And when the thing starts, the little girls run out and they get in front of James Bond and the other guy, and they attack the ninjas, and they're beating up the ninjas. And the guy says, "Their father is the the owner of the martial arts school." So that was like a little comic relief thing that the little girls were beating up all these guys. This was exactly the same way. Like you never expected they're just young guys.
Yeah.
You never expected them to beat up the gangsters the way they did, and to take the hits. The one guy he couldn't feel pain, so he's lay on the ground and they're kicking him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm okay with this," He gets up and stabs the guy in the foot. Yeah, their characters, their superhero abilities, they all had that little larger than life thing in the smallest package. You know what I mean? It's like a Honda Accord being the fastest car on the street. Like what?
Yeah, I really wanted to bring up this movie because it's I feel like sometimes we because we have that status in America of being like the filmmaking sort of industry capital in the world, that sometimes we could overlook that there are some really good quality movies that come out from other industries, from other parts of the world. And this, I felt like, is a comedy that honestly could be one of the best even in American industries as well.
I always wonder why the rest of the world doesn't do these things. Mm-hmm. It's like the whole music scene. There's bands in every country, but the hits are from here. Mm-hmm. There's movies. I mean, you got Bollywood in India. They make thousands and thousands of movies and millions and billions of dollars and everything, but they're not like American movies, And I often wonder why. The Italians and the French and everything. Why? And the British have like a weird comedy thing that they do, and they have a kind of a like a cultural kind of movie that they make or something that's good.
Yeah.
But America does really excel in all these things. So I'm glad you turned me on to this movie because it let me see something. I would have never seen this otherwise.
But this is one of those movies where Americans definitely should watch it. Like, for sure. This is one of the reasons why I recommended this movie, was because I thought it was interesting that a movie that came out so recently reached the heights of film history in South Korea. And once I saw it myself, I definitely thought, well, that's why. It's a really well-rounded, very coherent, and honestly, still very funny movie.
It's totally good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of like just with the, like you said, the characters, where it's a superhero movie, you really grow attached to them because it feels like they become a family over the course of this movie, and you can see a lot of that dynamic sort of build both naturally and comedically, like sort of like the sort of unspoken love-hate romance between Detective and Zhang and Ma.
Yeah.
And it builds up to that.
That scene at the end is so great. They're pulverizing the fight, and they lunge at each other, and they start kissing. And the other guy says to a police officer, "Oh, give me your gun. I got to shoot these. I got to, And the captain, the detective captain, goes, "Put a stop to that. Put a stop to that."
He's on the gurney. He's been shot like 3 times. He's like hanging on for life, and he leans over and he says, "Stop them. You need to shoot them now."
Yeah, right. And then the classic cliche where the youngest guy in the group, he's leaning over the other detective. He goes, "You're my father." He goes, "You're hurting me." You're really funny.
Yeah, and then all the characters, that's what I said before too, is like all the characters feel very distinct. Like with Detective Ma, for example, the running joke is that like he's the weirdo one. He's kind of ugly, like not great looking. He has a little bit of a gambling problem at the very beginning, and everyone thinks he's weird looking. Yeah. And then it's the comedy of just like the only other female.
Yeah, he gets the girl.
Yeah, he's the one who gets the girl. That's
cute,
funny.
He's a super cute girl,
yeah.
And she even tells the one guy she's beating up this guy, and she says, "You hit him in this face. It's the only thing he has that's good." And for me, I was like, I didn't even get it that was a joke. I was like, that guy's not good looking.
Yeah.
Like, why is she saying, like, the joke went over my head. I found that funny. Mm-hmm. I found observing myself watching the movie to be funny.
Yeah. It will definitely be what I would say, like, I think a different experience, like a very refreshing experience, I would say.
Look, we have restaurants from all over the world, and they're all a little different, right? I thought it was funny that they were eating a Korean barbecue.
Yeah.
Like, that was something I did understand. Mm-hmm. But this movie definitely has a different flavor. Mm-hmm. This could not be made here. They shouldn't have Kevin Hart, shouldn't be doing this. It's not going to be good.
I've seen
it's going to be like the Panda restaurants, not really Chinese food.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's a different flavor.
I've seen a lot of the Kevin Hart movies. I've seen like, Central Intelligence and like Jumanji and stuff like that. I've seen a lot of his movies because, my mom likes them. And that's why I said that, like, if you watch Kevin Hart movies, it feels very much that like the comedy comes from him just reacting from all the stuff that's happening around him. And that's funny. And he comes out the humor comes from him being very straight-laced, thrown into an absurd situation. And he reacts to that in a funny way. But with this one, it's like the comedy comes from the style of acting that is done in like Korea, where it's very dramatic, very expressive, where you feel like the characters are interacting rather than reacting. And I felt like very refreshing.
Are you telling me that Jumanji was remade with Kevin Hart?
Have you not?
What, wasn't that a Robin Williams movie the way I remember it? Somebody tried to remake a movie that starred Robin Williams.
It's actually more of a direct sequel, I believe. Yeah. It's a direct sequel, and there's two. There have been two. Another one after that one where it has The Rock, Kevin Hart, Jack Black. I'm just gonna give him the run.
Jack Black's always good.
Jack Black's always good. Yeah. And then Karen Gillan. I'm not sure if you're familiar with who she is. She was in she was Nebula from the Marvel movies, but also she played Amelia Pond from Doctor Who, the newer seasons. If you're familiar with that at all.
The first few seasons, Doctor Who.
No, like the newer ones within like the 2014.
I don't want to see the remake of Jumanji. The first one was phenomenally perfect.
Yeah.
That was really, really perfect. I wish they wouldn't make a mess of these things. It'd be like having a remake to The Wizard of Oz. Yeah. You know what I mean? She's back, No.
You see, but even in Jumanji, all the characters are sort of just reacting, and that's where the comedy comes from. But in this film, I felt like the acting, the way that it's done in Korea, was very refreshing. I want people to see it before it gets remade with Kevin Hart, and I feel like
they should.
The magic of it is lost.
You know what the acting reminded me of?
What?
Did you ever see like a Gladiator movie from the 50s?
No.
That's a shocking answer. No, huh?
That's the real generation gap right there.
Right. Yeah, it was a thing where they have like, like Michael Caine as Julius Caesar or something like that. And the acting is like way over the top. Like it's totally just everything is every scene is overacted. It's like some kind of acting school acting, maybe from Shakespearean training or something.
Yeah.
And these guys are trying to make a Roman gladiator movie. That's how this was. It was a different flavor.
Yeah.
It was just a totally... That's why I really had to really enjoy it as much as I did. I had to watch it twice. Had it been in English, like overdubbed, I might have not had to, but I was glad I watched it the way I did.
Did you feel like there was any actors in this movie that like really stood out to you? Okay.
I thought they all really did as perfect a job as could be. Mm-hmm. And now this is the racist thing. I don't know how to judge that. I don't know how to. They did what they did. I bought it 100%. I don't know how to rate them. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to I can't look at Detective Ma. Say his name in Korean.
I think it's Jin Seong-kyu.
Okay, I don't want to embarrass myself, right? Yeah, I'm not comparing him to George Clooney. You know what I mean? I'm not comparing him to Mel Gibson.
It's funny that you say that because Squad Chief Go There, Ryu Seong Young, he's like
you have trouble saying it.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. Korean's a bit rusty, but he's like he's a huge superstar in Korea. He's actually one of the leads in the first most watched Korean film, film in Korean history, and he's a superstar. He's basically within like almost the top 10 of all of the most viewed films in like South Korea. So he's a really big name actor, and I felt like you could really see through it, even if you have
the Brad Pitt of South Korea.
Yeah, kind of like that. I would say that. Yeah,
it's impossible for me to identify that. I found that really interesting. I found the race thing to be really interesting for me. Mm-hmm. It was a movie that nobody was in. Yet the guy's a huge star, but I have no context to that. It's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you said you like that though. You like it when you can watch a movie and not know who anyone is.
I do. Mm-hmm. I do. I don't want to see. It's like watching a John Wayne movie where the whole way you just realize it's John Wayne. Every word he says is John Wayne.
Yeah.
Like whatever part he's playing. Same thing. Sean Connery. Doesn't matter what he's playing. He's Sean Connery. So I do like it when I don't recognize anybody. And then they really are the person. So these actors here, I will always think of them as Detective Ma, as Detective, I'll call her Jang. You can say it the right way. Mubai, right?
Mubai. Yeah.
Yep. The rest of the guys, I couldn't even put it together all through the movie. Like, I didn't learn their names. This is what I'm saying. It was really interesting to me to just gloss over their names. It was like, whatever.
Was it worth watching? You saw it twice. Mm-hmm. Once to read the subtitles, the second time to actually really get it all. Did you feel like it was worth watching twice though?
Oh, totally, yeah.
This movie is just really well put together. It stands out on all fronts, and all fronts really come together to make this a really great, complete package. I would have to say that honestly, this movie is a 10 out of 10 for me. Yeah,
I feel the same way. I feel that any criticism that I might have would be unjustified, and my lack of palate. You know what I mean? It had spices that I'm not used to. So I gotta for what it is. I'm not qualified. I really don't have what it takes to really get every last ounce of juice out of this thing. So for me, 10. Give it I'm with you.
Thank you for watching The Real Generation Gap. Make sure to leave a comment down below and let us know what foreign films do you recommend that we should review. We'd really like to know, so make sure you let us know. Thank you, and come join us again.